This week in the business of tech, 4 key customer service technology trends, AWS's MSSP Partner Program, MFA Fatigue and its role in Uber's breach, Morgan Stanley leaked customer data because it didn't wipe hard drives, and an IT services company fires 300 for moonlighting. All these stories and more. Hit those like, subscribe, and the notification button and help us pay the bills. And here are this week's stories. Gartner with another interesting one. 4 key customer service technology trends. Quoting Channel Daily News. Trend number 1. Technologies that enable reps are bringing the most value to service organizations. Gartner says that employee-centric technologies like workforce management, case management, consolidated desktop agents, internal collaboration tools, and unified communications currently deliver the most value to the customer service function. These type of technologies focus on performance, monitoring, and development to support day-to-day or intraday flexibility, new operational needs to manage the new work world, and new demands and expectations of customers. Trend number 2. The future lies in understanding the preferences and behaviors of digital customers. Gartner's survey revealed that in the next 2 years, digital self-service channels like online account portals and mobile applications, as well as predictive customer analytics, are expected to become valuable capabilities for service organizations. Trend number 3. CSS leaders expect most gains from data and analytics over the next few years. The focus will not only be on analyzing customer data using digital analytics, sentiment analysts, and machine learning, but also taking that data to make informed decisions using the actionable insights, according to leaders. Trend number 4. Substantial investments on the horizon in the development of AI and chatbots. According to the Gartner Technology Road Survey, trend number 4 reveals that CSS leaders will invest in VCAS and chatbots and AI in the next several years. Today, only 1 in 4 service organizations are fully deploying these technologies, but 37.5% of CSS leaders are planning to deploy chatbots by 2023, and 36.3% of them are doing the same for AI capabilities. While I'm on customer service, Propel Software recently conducted a U.S. consumer survey to understand how consumers define brand loyalty in today's market. More than half of consumers, 54%, said they would stop using a brand after just one bad experience. The news is worse if your target market is millennials. 57% will abandon your brand. Why do we care? Thematically, it's about digital. How much can an organization increase the value of the customer experience using tools? It all seems a touch obvious, and that's the danger. The obvious stuff is often assumed and can be underinvested, because turns out the customer, particularly the younger one, has little patience for bad experiences. I don't do much crypto on this show because, from my vantage point, most of it isn't ready for IT services, but I did want to cover last week's merge. The cryptocurrency Ethereum completed its upgrade called the Merge, designed to reduce energy consumption. The process moved from proof of work, showing actual computational processing, to proof of stage, where participants deposit or stake a certain amount of their crypto savings in a pool, which enters them in a lottery. Every time a crypto transaction requires approval, a winner is selected to verify the exchange and receive a reward. By some estimates, Ethereum's shift to proof of stake will reduce its energy consumption by more than 99%. Why do we care? I'm still watching for business use cases that make sense. Revisit my interview with Omid Malikan if you want a good perspective on crypto in IT services. The reason we care is the engineering discipline here. This process was multiple levels of test, planning, and communication, and seems to have gone off very smoothly. Migrations should be seamless, asked my friend Carl Polachuk, and you should want some reading here, so here it is. A new security one, sock puppets. No, not felt handhelds. Instead, hackers set up elaborate phishing techniques where they use multiple personas and email accounts to lure targets into thinking it's a realistic email conversation. Named multi-persona impersonation by researchers at Proofpoint who noticed it for the first time, the technique leverages the psychology principle of social proof to obscure logical thinking and add an element of trustworthiness to the phishing threads. The new tactic requires far more effort from their side to carry out the phishing attacks, as each target needs to be entrapped in an elaborate, realistic conversation held by fake personas or sock puppets. However, the extra effort pays off, as it creates a realistic-looking exchange of emails, which makes the conversation look legitimate. Why do we care? It's the sophistication, multiple levels of spoofing here, and creating a series of fictional people to convince the target of the legitimacy of the attackers. Examples like this make me question the chorus of education as the answer for protecting against social engineering attacks. I'll offer my premise. Maybe we, as a society, should only use systems with a high level of identity verification for transactions. Email was never built to identify identity, yet we continue to leverage it. In the previous story, the entire blockchain changed its underlying tech, yet we're unwilling to do so for email? Someone tell me why. How about some data on trust? Let's quote Computer Weekly. The vast majority, 84% of IT and business decision makers in Europe, say they acknowledge the importance of digital trust. Still, less than 10% of them have designated a staff member with responsibility for the matter, and only 19% say they measure the maturity of their digital trust practice in any meaningful way. Even more, 86% say digital trust will be even more important by 2027 than it is today, but only 27% are offering digital trust training to staff. This is according to pan-European research by cyber association ISACA, which revealed significant gaps between how organizations operate today and what they should be doing to establish leadership and earn customer or user trust in the digital world. Less than half of respondents also said there was an insufficient external collaboration among professionals in fields deemed critical to digital trust, such as cybersecurity, data integrity, and privacy. Why do we care? I want to observe that if an organization says something is important and doesn't invest in it, in this case training, then the thing is not important. While I inherently believe individuals and organizations can do multiple things at once, yes, you can walk and chew gum simultaneously, it's a deliberate choice. There's a space here for those organizations that value trust. There are services to be delivered. I believe this links to data governance too, and there are services there. It's clear those services are not for everyone, it seems, despite the fact they should be. Channel partners are likely to play a more critical role in securing recurring revenue, according to a report by G2, host of a tech marketplace and peer-to-peer review site. As the preferences to buy from third-party marketplaces and resellers continue to climb, even among enterprise companies, the post-purchase experience is critical to the vendor-buyer relationship. Ease of implementation tops the list among the 3 most important buyer considerations when making a software purchase. It's a key consideration as companies think about renewing their contract, with 93% of buyers indicating that the quality of the implementation process is important or very important when deciding to renew a software product, the 2022 G2 Software Buyer Behavior Report noted. This story thanks to Channel Market Report. Pair that with a recent study by Breeden, Zomentum, and Partnership Leaders, which shows that 48% of SMBs consult with SaaS vendor partners before making buying decisions. Why do we care? You only get one chance to make a first impression. It's a pivotal point to be remembered, and why successful IT services companies focus so much on onboarding. Getting that straight sets the entire tone, and a good software product rolled out poorly leaves devastating damage. And a revisit of some of the movement from last week on cybersecurity. Wanted to highlight a few other things among the many movements, including that requirement around NIST rules I mentioned last week. First, the Biden administration is spelling out the application process and award timelines and providing more details about implementing a $1 billion cybersecurity fund for state and local governments in last year's bipartisan infrastructure law. President Biden signed an executive order Thursday expanding the national security factors a federal review panel should consider when deciding whether to authorize significant foreign investments in U.S. companies. One of them is cybersecurity. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States should consider whether foreign investors pose cybersecurity risks that could harm U.S. national security and the cybersecurity practices of all parties in the transaction. It also includes evaluating risks to sensitive data of citizens. Why do we care? Public sector companies should be working with their customers to leverage those resources. Ample opportunity out there. It's a flurry of activity on cyber from the White House. The NIST rules I discussed last week, and today the theme is that recognition of cyber as yet another diplomatic factor. The list gets longer and faster. Expect more. A first-hand reporting account. The keynote for MSSP Alert Live in DC was a chat with Ryan Orsi from Amazon Web Services, focused on MSSPs and partners. His title, Worldwide Consulting Partner Practice Lead. I had a chance to ask a pair of questions at the event this week in DC. Did you know they have a security-focused partner program? You might not have. And interestingly, it has a set of standards around the deployment of AWS. Their plug, it's aws.amazon.com/MSSP. I focused on two questions. First, asking about the premise of security vendors selling tools like arms dealers and benefiting by having the problem. His answer was savvy. His focus was on operationalizing security into organizations. I'll take it. If the approach is to bake security in, rather than a sold add-on, you can see it as a way to deploy solutions. Ryan also mentioned a vetting process and an audit for entering the program. So I asked, is the program about a small number of curated partners or broad engagement? His answer emphasized the audit. He walked the line to encourage recruitment, while the lead emphasis was on that vetting process. Scott Barlow of Sophos reinforced the intensity of this audit process on stage, citing his organization's work to get into the program. Why do we care? It's an insight into the security world. Not everyone can do it, and not everyone should. It's easy to say partner as the answer for adding capabilities. And I challenge that again. It's a good sales answer, but not a panacea. Not all organizations magically partner and solve the problem. There's going to need to be more vetting in the process to be sure. You can see it happening across the market, from the new cyber rules out of the government to programs like this. IT services companies need to be asking, can we do this? Let's report on another new tactic on the security front. MFA Fatigue. What's this? Wear down your target by continually asking for authentication until the user grants it. From Bleeping Computer. An MFA fatigue attack is when a threat actor runs a script that attempts to log in with stolen credentials repeatedly, causing an endless stream of MFA to push requests to be sent to the account owner's mobile device. The goal is to keep this up day and night to break down the target's cybersecurity posture and inflict a sense of fatigue regarding these MFA prompts. While we're at it, targeting the smartphone was part of that Uber hack, targeting the phone as an entry point into the network. Text an Uber employee, claim to be IT, and reveal a password. That from the hacking group to the New York Times. Although Uber's version says it was a corporate password purchased on the dark web after a contractor's device was infected by malware, and that contractor was hit with multiple MFA requests, thus MFA fatigue. Why do we care? One can easily see how this works. Wear down the user until they finally say yes. Annoy them to submission. I'm hopeful the coming shifts to passkeys may help. May. I highlight this all from an awareness perspective. roll this detail into your education. Users can report this kind of overwhelming asks rather than be worn down by it. Know about Nodeware? Nodeware is an in-demand and real-time cybersecurity solution that helps businesses reduce their risk of ransomware or other cyber attacks, all with breakthrough simplicity and affordability. With truly continuous vulnerability scanning, even during normal business hours, you'll get real-time alerts of network access and newfound risks, with easy and insightful reports to take action on and report to your customers. Want to learn more? Visit nodeware.com/partners to find out more. A minor repair update. The team at iFixit has done an iPhone 14 breakdown and reported that the phone's internals have been significantly redesigned, so much so that the device is now considerably easier to repair. Vice reporting here notes that it's likely a response to pressure from investors, customers, and even the government. Why do we care? I'm going to hold this up as an example of pressure working. Sure, it's not perfect. Repair requires Apple tools and software, but it's a move in the right direction. Repairability becomes a requirement by pressure, not by choice. It's too cliche not to look at. Federal regulators accused Morgan Stanley on Tuesday of astonishing failures that led to the mishandling of sensitive data on some 15 million customers. What was the mishandling? They did not properly dispose the devices they were retiring, which held sensitive data. In one case, they hired a moving company with no experience or expertise in data destruction to decommission hard drives and services. That company went on to resell those machines with the data still there. Other ways, they failed to safeguard customer data and properly dispose of consumer report information in other ways, including when the firm shut down local office and branch servers. In one, 42 servers, all potentially containing unencrypted data and consumer report information, were missing. Morgan Stanley paid a fine of $35 million without admitting or denying the findings. Why do we care? Morgan Stanley had revenues of $13.1 billion for the second quarter of 2022, and its profit was $2.5 billion. These numbers were down. For those of us in IT services, we're screaming about the incompetence here. This is as blatant and careless as you can consider. And the end result? Clearly not that big a big deal. That's a parking ticket, not a serious fine. I'm not advocating for providers to not care about doing the job right, nor to ignore protecting data. I'm observing that unless the consequences are real, you shouldn't expect a change. Ponder how you feel about data protection laws now. IT services company's Wipro has fired 300 employees recently for moonlighting for the competition. The company employs 250,000 employees in over 6 nations, and the chairman said Wednesday that the company finds moonlighting for competitors an act of integrity violation. Quote, as part of transparency, individuals can have candid and open conversations around playing in a band or working on a project over the weekend. That is an open conversation that the organization and the individual can make a concerted choice about on whether that works for them or doesn't, he said. But, quote, there is no space for someone to work at Wipro and competitor XYZ, and they would feel exactly the same way if they were to discover the same situation. That is what I meant. So I do stand by what I said. I do think it is a violation of integrity if you are moonlighting in that shape and form. The article from TechCrunch does note that, quote, some startups are embracing moonlighting as a perk. Swiggy, India's most valuable food delivery startup, told employees last month that they can take up a second job for pro bono or economic considerations after securing an internal approval. Why do we care? Do you have a policy here? Whether you allow moonlighting or not, a business should have a clear position. It's the confusion I'm advising against. Is it a competitive perk? Sure, maybe. For a competitor? I know I'd be uncomfortable with that one. Note that the example does include internal approval as a requirement, and thus, why you need a policy. And in other hiring, staffing, and employee news, let's hit some numbers. There's confidence among tech workers. Over half, 57.1% of employees surveyed are planning on looking for a new job in the next 6 months, and 22.2% are considering it. That from Hired 2022 Salaries Report. 67% report that they'd start looking for other work if their employer knocked back a pay raise request in the next 6 months. A further 23% would stay if declined a raise, but would push for other benefits such as stock options or more PTO. There's also more detailed coverage of that bait-and-switch job interview problem in Insider. What's that? A candidate hires a person to pretend to be them, gets interviewed, hired, and then the real candidate shows up for work. There's no hard data on the trend. The concern is how much easier it is to run that scam with interviewing via video chat or with employees working remotely. And again, from that Hired research, salaries for tech employees working remotely are outpacing those working in the office, with pay remaining at an all-time high. Why do we care? The theme continues to be overinvesting in people and people management. How good is your hiring process? Are you screening for scammers? How about ongoing? We care about this because this is continuing to be more and more difficult. After back-to-back quarters of GDP contracting, estimates so far point to an economy that's growing again, but slowly. Quoting Axios, the latest reading of the Atlanta Fed's GDP Now forecasting model shows the economy expanding moderately in the current quarter. That estimate can swing wildly as data evolves. Last week, it dropped to an annualized 0.5% from 1.3%. That's due in part to a soft reading of the retail sales control group that feeds into GDP calculations. Other economists trimmed expectations for growth. Bank of America, for instance, nudged its Q3 GDP tracker down by 0.3 percentage points to 0.8%. So combine that with the Fed's move to increase interest rates again this week, and they released new forecasts that show the central bank envisions higher unemployment and yet higher rates in the coming months in its campaign to bring down inflation. Further quoting Axios, the signal of more rate increases ahead paired with pessimistic projections for the labor market is a clear signal of the Fed's commitment to putting a lid on soaring prices, even if the broader economy takes a hit as a result. In new forecasts, the median Fed official envisioned the unemployment rate rising to 4.4% late next year and staying there through 2024, a projected increase that Powell characterized as relatively modest by historical standards. They previously envisioned the jobless rate peaking at 3.9%. Why do we care? Two reasons. First, we care about the labor market, considering how hard it is to find tech employees. I'm not sure unemployment here will help. We'll watch for analysis there. That said, it's customers too who are going to be impacted. Second, if the cost of money goes up, anything around financing could be impacted. It's budget time, so customers may be thinking a lot about spending for 2023. The cost of money will not be as low as it's been, and that's why we care. Crypto is continuing to seep into content here. Today, another use case. Nova Labs and T-Mobile have partnered to launch Helium Mobile, a 5G wireless smartphone service. It will use Helium's decentralized crypto-powered 5G network, as well as T-Mobile's network, and switch between the two as needed. Quoting Decrypt, by combining networks and switching between the two as needed, Nova Labs says the service will offer two significant economic differentiators from traditional services. Plans will start at just $5 per month, and users can also optionally earn crypto tokens rewards for sharing data. Now, why do we care? Here's another crypto use case, allowing individual users to sell service to others. You can earn money for sharing service. This version of Helium's network is a new one, and their previous services were focused on IoT devices.
Thanks for your time and attention. Time is a finite resource, and I really value you giving me some of yours. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSP Radio. It's our give what you want model where you set the value of what you think the content is worth. If you like this podcast, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary show, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue button to subscribe. Again, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all that, and I look forward to talking to you next time.